Good evening, everyone. We're going to start the meeting shortly. So we just encourage anyone who's joining via Zoom to take a short survey that you can see here displayed with this QR code or also the link. And I just want to make a quick mention that we have both live captioning and American Sign Language interpretation available for all members of the public at tonight's meeting. And our ASL interpreters are going to be visible in a speaker window that you should see on your screen throughout the presentation. To turn on captions, look for the CC button on the bottom of your screen of your Zoom in your Zoom settings menu. If you have any questions about meeting accessibility, please use the chat function and one of our staff members will do their best to assist you. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Nick Fasano. I'm the Assistant Director of Government and Community Relations at the MTA Long Island Railroad. So I want to welcome all of you to tonight's public virtual meeting that we're hosting on Long Island Railroad service to Grand Central Madison. So just as a little background, our draft timetables were released on June 2nd and are currently available on the MTA's website. And our goal here is to ensure that all of our customers understand how Long Island Railroad service will change when our new plan launches at the end of this year. Tonight's session will be recorded and available on our website. This is our fourth public session, and it will be different than the three previous sessions we have hosted in that we will give those who have registered a chance to speak and comment publicly on Long Island Railroad service to Grand Central Madison. If you are interested in seeing the presentation that we have shown at previous events, please visit new.mta.info/Grand Central Madison, which you can also see displayed here. That's all one word. And before we begin the public comment portion of the meeting, you're also going to hear remarks from Kathy Rinaldi, who's the president of Metro North Railroad and also the interim president of Long Island Railroad, and she is sitting immediately to my right. She's going to talk about what this transformative project means for Long Island Railroad service, Metro North service, and then regional connectivity as a whole. So before we do all that, I just want to quickly remind everyone that this meeting comes at the very beginning of our public outreach. So we also want to extend our thanks to you for attending this meeting and just say we're grateful that you're here with us. And we look forward to more occasions in the coming months to discuss all of our service, the new timetables, the terminal, etc. And with that, I'm going to introduce Kathy. So please, take it away, Kathy.
Nick, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for participating in tonight's session. I'm so happy to be here tonight at the fourth public session that we've had on the recently announced Grand Central Madison draft schedules. At meetings like this one tonight, we know that customers who are happy with the new schedules usually do not turn out to speak, and that we will hear from people who are unhappy with the new proposed service. I want to remind everybody that these are draft schedules and we are listening. While there are physical limitations based upon our infrastructure, we will look to adjust schedules in response to public comment if possible, and will continue to push for those infrastructure needs that will benefit Long Island Railroad customers. But now I want to talk about the myriad benefits that this transformative project will deliver to Long Islanders and to the entire region. This is a fantastic, exciting time for the Long Island Railroad, and it is an honor to be leading the Long Island Railroad during this historic time. It is a time during which massive transformation projects that had been promised for many, many years are finally coming to reality. Constraints that have long put a ceiling on how much service the Long Island Railroad can operate are falling away as we bring online two long-awaited mega projects that are designed to improve Long Islanders' commutes and make Long Island a more competitive business destination. Mainline Third Track, which will be activated in segments throughout this year, and service to Long Island Railroad's new terminal at Grand Central, which has been christened Grand Central Madison, which is scheduled to begin by the end of 2022. For me, with the responsibility over Metro North as well as the Long Island Railroad, it's been a real thrill to have a chance to see the connectivity within the new terminal firsthand during Governor Hochul's press announcement that was held there a couple months ago. During that announcement, we could hear actual trains entering and departing from the platforms below. Many of these trains had Long Island Railroad personnel on board, and they were being trained in the physical characteristics of the new territory. This is one of many readiness activities that are underway as we prepare to commence service later this year. The draft timetables were released last month, and they give definition to the magnitude of the service increases that both Third Track and Grand Central Madison service will unlock. The release of these timetables has also allowed our customers to start thinking about what their travel might look like after they have the option to take the train to Grand Central Madison. It is no exaggeration to say that there is no railroad or public transportation system in America that is getting larger service increases than the Long Island Railroad will be getting in a few short months. In one stroke, we are increasing service by 40%. It's a staggering number for a system that normally adjusts by a percentage point or two during a routine schedule update. I'm sure that this crowd is interested in facts and figures, so here are a few facts and figures about the new service plan. The number of morning rush hour trains into Manhattan will increase by 58%, from 76 to 120. The number of afternoon rush hour trains from Manhattan to Long Island will increase from 98 trains to 158 trains. The number of reverse commute trains will increase by 65%, from 81 to 134. And there will be reductions in running times for trains throughout the entire system. The opening of Grand Central Madison later this year provides a permanent home for Long Island in Manhattan that is not controlled by other railroads or shared with any other operations. Long Island Railroad and Metro-North operations within the terminal are completely separate, and a delay or incident on one railroad should not spill over onto the other. Having robust service into a second Manhattan terminal allows for operations to continue in the event of any sort of service disruption at Penn, and minimizes the disruption that will result from Amtrak's East River Tunnel replacement project. That project is scheduled to begin in early 2024 and could take more than 3 years to complete. The proposed schedules accommodate the Amtrak work so that there will not be a need to reduce service when this work begins in a couple of years. For Long Islanders who work on the east side of Manhattan, taking the train to Grand Central Madison will reduce their commute by up to 40 minutes a day. Taken together with the Third Track project, the opening of Grand Central Madison will also enable robust reverse commute opportunities, opening up jobs on Long Island to New York City residents in a big new way for the very first time. We've seen on Metro-North that if you operate reverse peak service, New York City residents will use that service to commute to jobs in the suburbs, from everything like office workers in city centers, to construction, to domestic work in suburban homes like nannies and home health aides. And the importance of the connectivity between the two railroads cannot be overstated. The ability to use Grand Central as a transfer point between the two railroads all of a sudden makes it possible for businesses in Queens and Long Island to attract prospective employees from the Bronx and points north. And with the region still recovering from the impacts of COVID-19 upon work and travel patterns, this interconnectivity between the railroads allows for greater discretionary and leisure travel between the two systems, attracting Westchester residents to Long Island beaches and wineries in the summer, and Long Island residents to Hudson Valley hiking destinations in the fall. And it will be much easier for the Yankee fans among you to get up to the stadium, and for Mets fans up north to make it over to Citi Field. For those who continue to use Penn Station, it means an easier experience because it will be a less crowded experience, with something like 50% of Long Island Railroad riders expected to shift their travel patterns and travel into GC Madison. In conclusion, I want to thank you all so much for joining us here tonight. I'm going to turn it back over to Nick to begin the public comment period. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. So now we're going to begin the public comment portion of tonight's meeting, and I'm going to call on the names of people who have registered to speak in the order in which they are registered. All participants will be muted upon joining the Zoom webinar, which you all are now. And when your name is called, please enable your camera and microphone by clicking the camera and microphone icons at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you don't want to have video on, that's fine. You're going to see a brief transition as we elevate you to a speaking role, so don't be alarmed. Just give it a second, and that should work itself out. When you begin speaking, please provide us with your name and any affiliation you wish to announce so that we have it for the record. And this is important so that we can be fair to all speakers. We are asking you to please limit yourselves to the minute and a half that we have allocated for you. We're going to be concluding the meeting at 9:30 as well, so that's doubly important so that we can ensure that everybody is heard And if you aren't called on, we will be sure to prioritize you in our following public speaking engagements. We're going to have a clock on the screen that will indicate how much time you have remaining, and a warning light will beep and remind you that you have 30 seconds left to conclude your remarks, and I will also remind you. Additionally, if you registered to speak tonight but you joined the Zoom under a different name, please indicate this in the Q&A function so that we know you're here. In addition to speaking tonight, you can always submit additional comments at the following website, which I will post in the chat for you all as well. I know it's a difficult URL, so that's why. And you can also visit the project page, which we had up earlier, for more information, again, about the schedules and the new terminal. And lastly, I just want to remind everyone that we're also going to have MTA subject matter experts on tonight, so that if you have any questions during the course of tonight's Zoom, you can feel free to drop them in the chat as well. And the relevant subject matter expert will get back to you if it's deemed to pertain to this meeting. So with that, we're going to begin, and I'm going to turn it over to Senator Leroy Comrie to begin. So, Senator, please take the floor, and then he will be followed by Senator Anna Kaplan.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to congratulate the MTA and the Long Island Railroad and President Rinaldi for their work to continue to do everything they can to make improvements to the system. This will increase many options for riders in Queens to access the Long Island Railroad and utilize it on a daily and weekend basis as well. The ability to have more trains stopping through Queens to provide a faster ride into Manhattan can be a game changer for parents and working people, and also people that want to visit the city on the weekends, as ridership and interest in the city and visiting in off hours is important as well. So I just wanted to congratulate the MTA for consistently listening to all of its constituents and understanding that there is a major constituency in Queens that will be taking advantage of these opportunities once they come fully on board. So I look forward to, as you said, this is a draft proposal. I look forward to continuing to work with you as we formulate this proposal to increase ridership for all Long Island Railroad riders. Thank you and have a good evening.
Great, thank you. So now we'll continue with Senator Kaplan. Senator.
Good evening. I'm Anna Kaplan, and I am New York State Senator from the 7th Senate District, which includes the northern portion of Nassau County. In the weeks since the MTA released the draft proposed timetables, I have heard from literally thousands of constituents in my district who are nearly unanimous in their outrage over the proposal that has been laid out. And I share their outrage. So many people in my community moved here specifically to take advantage of the convenient one-seat express trains that get them in and out of Penn Station quickly and efficiently, so that they can spend more time with their families and less time sitting on a train each day. I've had many conversations with the MTA and the governor's office about the problems with the proposal, particularly the loss of express train service on Port Washington line, including for travelers using the Great Neck, Manhasset, and Plandome Station. The increased length of trips on the Port Washington line, the loss of a one-seat ride on the main line riders to the Atlantic terminal, and the challenges presented by a difficult transfer to the platform F. I've been pleased that the MTA and the governor's office have been willing to hear our concerns on the topic, and I appreciate the ongoing dialogue we have been having to resolve these issues. I, along with my other colleagues in government from this area, stand ready to do whatever it takes to fix this, and we will continue working with you until we've come to a positive resolution for our community. And thank you for this opportunity.
Great, thank you, Senator. So now we're going to move to Senator Kevin Thomas, Senator, and that will also be followed by Assemblymember Gina Solitti. Okay, then we're going to move to Assemblymember Gina Solitti.
Good evening. My name is Gina Solitti. I'm the New York State Assemblywoman that represents the entirety of the Port Washington branch in Nassau County. So thank you for hosting this important public meeting. I understand we're at capacity tonight and even had to turn some folks away. I hope that shows the community concern for the proposed changes. And I've heard these concerns. For the last few weeks, I've gone to train stations and talked directly with commuters. I asked them to share with me and that I would pass along to you all their concerns. Before this meeting began, I sent over 2,200 survey responses to our Long Island Railroad government representative, with another 400 coming his way tomorrow. Nearly all of the 2,645 responses were in opposition to the proposed changes. So I want to be clear, nearly all the residents I spoke with were excited about this project and understand that it's truly transformative. We're not here to fight against progress. However, it can't be at the expense of the commuters that want to get back on the trains, that our governor wants to come back to the city to bring New York back. You will hear tonight about the residents' concerns about the elimination of the express train. You will hear about the concerns about overcrowding by adding so many stops with the same amount of trains we had pre-pandemic. You will hear about increased travel times. There are so many people on this call. Please listen to them, really hear what they have to say. Lastly, we know based on recent reporting that there had been opposition in the town of North Hempstead years ago to work with the MTA to prepare for this day. However, based on the concerns expressed here tonight over the previous weeks, I'm confident that the current elected officials are willing to work with the railroad to figure out a solution to help alleviate these concerns. The town and the MTA certainly have my support in whatever way I could be helpful. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Assemblymember. So now we're going to turn it over to Assemblymember Alicia Heineman, Assemblymember, and then after her, Mayor Ted Rosen.
Thank you very much. I represent Southeast Queens and the stops on Rosedale Lawson, Spanner, and districts and things.
Assemblymember, we're having trouble hearing you. Maybe if you disconnect your headphones, that might help.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, it was the AirPods. As a former commuter, as an assembly member, I think it's important that that these changes are necessary for the movement of commuters in New York State. As a former commuter, 15 years into Penn Station, I'm glad that Grand Central is now an option for the commuters that choose to use the railroad and not buses and trains to get into Manhattan to move the city and the state of New York. So I'm pleased about the progress. While we can't please everyone, it's important that those who are on the call voice their concerns, but we also have to make sure with progress sometimes comes a little bit of heartache, and we hope the inconveniences will be short-lived, and the progress that is coming to commuters into New York City will be alleviated with the Grand Central addition. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Assemblymember. We are now going to turn it over to Rasha Kadir, who's going to read a statement on behalf of Councilmember Williams, and then after that, we're going to go to Mayor Rosen, and then we'll go to Rasha Kadir. Mayor?
Yes, good evening. I would like to thank the MTA for giving me the opportunity to be here tonight to speak. I am the mayor of Great Neck Plaza. At the center of my village is the Great Neck train station. The Great Neck commuting line is central to the lives of many of the people in my village and the entire Great Neck community. As Senator Kaplan said, many people in the Great Neck area moved here specifically to take advantage of the excellent commute from Great Neck to Manhattan. We were all very excited with the coming of East Side Access. That's a major improvement for all Long Island Railroad commuters, and I myself was a commuter for many years. But when we saw the proposed timetables, we saw that the actual service from Great Neck into Manhattan did not go up, was not improved, but was reduced in certain critical ways. The average train ride into Manhattan is longer. And very critically, the Long Island Railroad express trains from Great Neck into Manhattan have largely been eliminated. We were able to take certain trains, the ride would take 25 minutes to go from Great Neck into Manhattan. And those have been eliminated. And as Senator Kaplan alluded to, this is very important for many of the people of Great Neck. I would urge the MTA to reconsider these changes. This should be a time when every commute is improved, not just certain commutes, but every commute. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So now we're going to have Rasha Kadir, followed by Matt Camper. Rasha.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're a little low, so if you want to raise your volume, that's fine.
Okay. Hello, my name is Rasha, and I am speaking on behalf of Council Member Natasha Williams. First, our office would like to thank the Long Island Railroad and their service expansion to Grand Central Terminal, which will greatly increase the access for our constituents to get to their destination in a timely manner. The service expansion will directly impact District 27, especially with the West Hempstead branch, Southeast Queens branch, and the Main Line West branch expansions. The West Hempstead branch expansion will impact the St. Albans station. This branch previously had 0 to 1 trains running on this route, and in 2019, the St. Albans station saw more than double the off-peak service in 2019. So this will greatly help our hardworking hospital workers in St. Albans as the span of service has been lengthened. As at these Southeast Queens locations, 60% of rush hour trains will run to Grand Central, and at Valley Stream, morning rush service has increased. Hollis and Queens Village will see an increase, and all in all, the proposal to increase service to our hardworking constituents will greatly help our community thrive and provide mobility it needs to continue to grow. I would once again like to thank the Long Island Railroad for their amazing work of increased service and for hearing the needs of the people, especially for the community of Southeast Queens.
Great, thank you, Rasha. So now we're going to go to Matt Camper, followed by Stephen Hirsch.
Hold on 1 second there. Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Matt Camper, and I am the Regional Vice President for Passengers United for the Long Island Railroad. And I'm here tonight for a couple of reasons. First of all, I am very happy to say that after years of advocating for riders of the Long Island Railroad, especially on the main line, my home branch, the Babylon branch, I am very happy to see the changes that are coming, especially with the off-peak hours service. The main line is going to get double the service that they do now, thanks to the third track project, and that is something that it's going to be tremendous for mainline riders. It's going to reduce overcrowding on the main line, and I want to thank the Long Island Railroad, for that. And of course, also the weekend service on the Babylon branch. There have been times where I have felt that semi-express service replacing one of the trains hourly, that was something that needs to be worked on, and I'm glad that is being worked on. And the last thing I want to say is, as far as Elmont UBS Arena service on the weeknights, you have a gap between 10:11 and 10:57 eastbound for mainline riders after Islander games. I really am hoping that mainline trains, all of them, will stop at Elmont UBS Arena after events at UBS Arena or for Islander games, because otherwise it's going to be absolutely chaotic. And I hope that we can definitely take a look at that and try to change that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, so now we're going to have Stephen Hirsch, followed by Jessica Tai.
Hi, Stephen Hirsch from Great Neck. Thank you for soliciting our feedback. I'd like to set the record straight regarding some of the MTA's Port Washington line claims. Port Washington's terminal storage capacity actually has nothing to do with how many stops the trains make once they're outside the single track territory. Currently, 2 a.m. and 2 p.m. trains take 25 minutes or less from Great Neck. And these are at the height of the rush hour, and we time our commutes around them. So claims about the average duration are quite misleading. It's not just a few minutes more. The fastest proposed trains add over an hour a week to the total of these rides. Practically speaking, there's a very simple solution. Many proposed rush hour trains skip Little Neck and Douglaston, but then run local. Simply swap a few of those with the ones at Port Washington to keep the express service. And must every train stop at Woodside and Bayside and Great Neck? I think we can be strategic on transfers so every train doesn't become a local. So the choice is yours. You can either not satisfy or serve the needs of 4 stations, what I believe using existing infrastructure. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Now we're going to have Jessica Tai, followed by Carl Mills. Thank you.
Hi, this is Jessica Tai. I'm a teacher and I work in Brooklyn. I live near the Hempstead line. I have been taking the train every day. So I'm very happy for people commuting to Manhattan. What I want to say is for people who actually have been commuting into Brooklyn, it has gotten a lot more difficult. And there used to be a lot of direct trains into Brooklyn, but after I saw the draft timetable, right now, there is only from the Hempstead line, there is only one direct train into Brooklyn in the morning and one direct train back from Brooklyn into Hempstead. So many people actually live here and they go into Brooklyn directly. And with the changes, it's going to be very difficult. The commute is longer and there are more connections. And also, for people going into Lower Manhattan or even Wall Street, it's going to be very difficult. So I think there should be more direct trains into Brooklyn. And also, it sounds like there will be shuttle services from Brooklyn and from Atlantic to Jamaica. And the 6:20 train, if we make the connection, it misses the connection by 1 minute. So I think the trains should be better aligned if we do have connections, but there should be more direct trains into Brooklyn.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. So now we're going to have Carl Mills, followed by Dave Cappell. And if I mispronounce your name, I am sorry.
Hi, my name is Carl Mills. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Government Affairs at Stony Brook University. I want to express my thanks to the MTA and the Long Island Railroad for offering Stony Brook an opportunity to comment today. As one of the state's 2 flagship institutions, Stony Brook attracts students, staff, researchers, and visitors from across the world. Sharing a campus with the Stony Brook train station affords all of those at our campus a safe and reliable way to commute. As the largest single-site employer on the island and one of the largest economic drivers in the region, easy and affordable access to the university is critical. The long talked about East Side Access Project is finally becoming a reality, and the university thanks Governor Hochul, our state elected officials, and the MTA for making the investments for this transformative infrastructure project. It will improve service and reliability and give commuters more options as they plan their trips. Improving our regional infrastructure, particularly as it relates to public transportation, will continue to stimulate our regional economy and expand the reach of our university. As the MTA develops its new schedules, we caution against any proposed reductions in service options, particularly for those at our university who rely on the Port Jefferson line daily. We look forward to partnering with the MTA and our region's riders to help establish a convenient and robust schedule for all commuters. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Carl. Next, we'll have Dave Cappell, followed by Bradley Brashears.
That was pronounced perfectly. Thank you. My name is Dave Cappell. I am Executive Director of the Right Track for Long Island. We are a grassroots coalition with 5,000 members that came together to support the Long Island Railroad Third Track Project. We successfully overcame the long history of controversy associated with the project by actively engaging the folks most impacted and demonstrating how the project would dramatically improve the mainline corridor, eliminating 7 grade crossings, thereby dramatically reducing traffic and train noise while also expanding service. The affected communities have endured the short-term inconvenience of construction, but all will agree that the result is a dramatic improvement in the quality of life along the corridor. I'm informed that the impact of the opening of Grand Central Madison on Port Washington service, that is the subject of this hearing, can be effectively mitigated by expanding the train yard at Port Washington Station as has long been proposed by the railroad. This is a project that has been resisted by the community, much in the way Third Track was along the mainline corridor. I am happy to read that the town of North Hempstead leadership has offered to work with the MTA to expand the rail yard. I encourage everyone to join this dialogue and solve the problem for everyone's benefit. Port Washington line riders deserve to enjoy the awesome benefits that the fantastic new facility that is Grand Central Madison will provide to Long Islanders. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dave. So now we're going to have Bradley Brashears, followed by Josh Frost.
Hi, good evening. I'm Bradley Brashears, Associate Director at the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA, PCAC. We look forward to the many improvements this project will bring. Instead of Grand Central Madison, which many riders may find confusing, PCAC members suggest simply calling the destination Grand Central. We appreciate that the service plan will continue to improve and your commitment to adjustments being made along the way. We conducted a deep dive analysis of the service plan, but 90 seconds isn't enough to go into the details. We urge you to hold branch by branch town hall meetings so riders can share their thoughts and engage in dialogue on the biggest reimagining of Long Island Railroad service in over 50 years. The good news, some riders will see service increases and the simplified service plans will make schedules more understandable. That our intra-branch travel and reverse commute trips brought about by Eastside Access and Third Track will open the door to Long Island's economy. The bad news, service doesn't really improve for trips not involving Manhattan. Penn Station itself may see less service. The elimination of time connections may increase travel and transfer times. Most branches will only have hourly off-peak and weekend service, including in Southeast Queens. There are also large gaps in westbound reverse commute diesel service. Other issues include the Port Washington branch with longer trip times and splitting service between Penn and Grand Central with minimal increases. Brooklyn service is negatively impacted by Platform F, minimal through service, and long headways between trains, all of which will increase travel times and is particularly onerous for people with mobility challenges. It is important to get this right. It has cost over $11 billion and taken over 3 decades of planning, with the potential to transform regional mobility.
Bradley, please conclude your remarks. I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm wrapping up. Transform regional mobility between Long Island Railroad, Metro North, and New York City Transit. Congestion pricing and the need to reduce emissions and attract more drivers onto transit make this most urgent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Josh Frost, followed by Matthew Levenberg.
Hello, my name is Josh Frost. I'm a resident of Port Washington. I lived in New York City, specifically Manhattan, for approximately 13 years and moved to Port Washington for one of the exclusive benefits of traveling much more easily from the Long Island Railroad. So far, I've enjoyed it, and I, in fact, just got off the train less than 15 minutes ago. I've been following closely the advocacy efforts regarding the Port Washington branch and have been extremely frustrated and disappointed to the progress we've made so far. However, I am thrilled that we are all talking together in order to see what progress can be made to address the specific concerns of our community. The concerns, as you are well aware of already just from tonight's hearing, besides the other thousands of survey respondents, are the reduction in express trains and the impact that it has on our region, specifically the value of homes and the tax dollars that can be earned in order to educate my children will make it easier, we hope, in order to have better impacts in our communities. I also recognize that Port Washington is not in a vacuum. However, it seems that the changes that have been made have outwardly and outsizedly affected the Port Washington branch. I urge the MTA to consider and reevaluate this in a path forward that seems like it would not have any other negative effect on any other communities. I respect the earlier comment from the other assembly member who said that all of us must feel some pain. Well, that is probably true. Port Washington seems to be feeling more pain than most right now, and I urge us to find a common resolution to address it. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you, Josh. Next, we're going to have Ian Rasmussen, followed by Jacob Berlove.
Good evening. My name is Ian Rasmussen, and I'm a Port Washington resident and commuter, and I'm very proudly a former conductor on the Long Island Railroad. And while I was putting together my remarks tonight, I actually just looked over an old timetable from the 1970s for the Port Washington branch. And it really puts in some perspective how meaningful this change is, because our grandparents and our parents rode these same trains. And someday my kids or grandkids will probably be on these same trains. So what's amazing is to look at that timetable and see that off-peak trains used to take 41 minutes. Today they take 45, and in the future they're going to take 47 or 48. Today our peak trains take 34 or 35 minutes. That's going to increase to 42 or 43, all of which is to say nearly every train on the timetable is going to run slower after East Side Access than it did in the 1970s, which begs the question, what are we doing here? We've replaced the M1s with the M7s, and we've replaced the wooden ties with concrete, manually thrown switches, replaced by state-of-the-art computerized interlockings, and yet the trips are getting longer. And the problem is they appear to be getting a lot longer in 4 places: Great Neck, Manhasset, Plandome, and Port Washington. I can only imagine that it's some sort of a mistake, and I respectfully request that the railroad return to the draft timetable and figure out a way to distribute increases in travel times across the entire branch, and in fact, the entire system equally. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ian. So next, we're going to have Jacob Berlove, followed by Zimin Wang.
Oh gosh, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Good evening. I'm here to discuss how the proposed draft schedule affects Far Rockaway customers who work in Forest Hills. Far Rockaway and nearby communities make a good place to live for commuters working in Forest Hills, and the commute should not normally take much more than an hour. So I know many different people who ride the Far Rockaway line who work in Forest Hills. A lot of them, they put their tickets at Penn Station because they find it easier. So the Forest Hills customers are getting undercounted. The morning rush schedule needs to be tweaked. Parents who need to get their children to school will find that the train that leaves Far Rockaway at 7:48 is just a little too early to catch. The next train that leaves at 8:11 misses the connection to Forest Hills by 2 minutes, as it doesn't get into Jamaica till 8:47. Pre-COVID, there was an 8:10 train that ran directly to Forest Hills. And the 8:11 train, if it would just be tweaked a little bit, would enable customers to get to work to Forest Hills at a reasonable time. there is a train from on the Brentwood line that runs direct to Forest Hills. It gets in at 8:50. I think there'll be a lot more Forest Hills customers in the Far Rockaway branch than on the Brentwood branch. So I'm speaking on behalf of quite a number of my friends on the Far Rockaway branch line who work in Forest Hills. We're asking that there be a reduced headway for the trains running from the Far Rockaway line to Forest Hills, because right now, if you can't catch that 7:48 train that departs 7:48 from Far Rockaway, you cannot get to work till after 9:30, waiting 46 minutes for the 8:35 train leaving from Far Rockaway. This affects a lot of parents with school children who work in Forest Hills. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Jacob. So next we're going to have Zimin Wang, followed by Steven Sardar.
Good evening. My name is Zimin Wang. I am a resident and commuter living in Greenock. I'm extremely disappointed with the proposed new schedule for Port Washington Penn Station line because it eliminates the AM and the PM express train service to and from Greenock. The new schedule increases commute time by 9 minutes one way, a shocking 38% jump. Moreover, the frequency is reduced from 6 trains to 4 trains per hour during a peak hour, another shocking 33% cut in train services. The pocket train and infrastructure were constructed in Greenock to support the Long Island Railroad train service. Greenock residents endured the construction and endure the storage of trains in our neighborhood every day. However, we are penalized by longer commute for supporting the Long Island Railroad over the past 10 years. We urge the Long Island Railroad to bring back express train service for Greenock Penn Station commuters. Improving commute for communities should not come at the cost of hurting existing commuters. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Steven Sardar and then Nicole Karaguzov. If I pronounce your name wrong, I apologize.
Good afternoon, you got it right. So my name is Steven Sardar. I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I commute to Great Neck on nearly every day for school during school months. And I was upset by the new draft schedules. If I miss, for example, when I commute from Brooklyn to 34th Street, if I miss my train at 34th Street, it's going to have to make me go all the way to 42nd Street, then transfer once again on either the 42nd Street shuttle or the 7 train to Grand Central in order to catch my next train. Now, I believe with the new technology implemented, positive train control, we can effectively increase service for the Port Washington branch as a whole, and not only bring back express service, rather implement off-peak and peak service without jeopardizing neither Penn Station nor Grand Central. It would also, proposition I have written down, would also eliminate the need to transfer for anybody to transfer at Woodstock. It would effectively reduce travel times as a whole from Penn Station or Grand Central to all the way to Port Washington, Great Neck, or any of the peak stations. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So now we're going to have Nicole Karaguzov. Again, if I pronounce you wrong, I apologize, followed by Dave Stays.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. So after 15 years, billions of dollars in conveniences related to the Long Island Railroad construction to facilitate East Side access, to me, it's utterly unacceptable that instead of additive service and access to the city, as one would expect from a project of this scope, that 70+% of current riders or constituents who use the Nassau County, Port Washington, Long Island Railroad stations, in fact, see express service eliminated, resulting in up to 30% increase in rush hour commute times to Penn, drastic reduction in the number of trains to Penn Station. 1 train per hour is completely and utterly unacceptable, in particular during rush hour commuting times. No complete restoration of train service to pre-COVID levels. Again, any reasonable person would have expected increased flexibility, enhancements to the commuting experience, and new opportunities. Not this. The Long Island Rail will build this project all along as additive services. East Side access should not come at the expense of current and what has been long-standing express and frequent service to Penn Station. The Port Washington line has always been recognized as the star of the portfolio, and in fact, that's why my husband and I moved to Manhasset. Up further, off-peak schedule to Penn Station reduced to once per hour is also a big blow, not only to the Port Washington line constituents, but also to the city's ability to restore economic growth to pre-COVID levels. As a person who grew up in Queens with easy access to the city and also officing, I did choose Manhasset, and because of the Port Washington line, because it had the non-best peak service. Finally, I would just like to say that it seems utterly short-sighted and completely counterintuitive to make these types of service reductions and a disincentive to this constituency to return to the city, whether it be for work or pleasure, given the absolute need for folks to return to the city to spur economic recovery for both the city and the state. I will close with a reminder that this constituency accounts for more than a majority of the Port Washington line ridership and thus revenue. And while Queens riders are Long Island constituents too, those folks do have access to the alternative, less expensive options to and out of the city: subway, city buses, and express bus service via the Queens Surface Transit. I really, really hope that the Long Island Railroad reconsiders restoring express train service to the Port Washington line, Nassau County
Okay, thank you.
railroad stations, and that I assume.
Just again, please reminder, 1.5 minutes per speaker, please. Thank you. So next we're going to have Dave Stays, followed by Ariana Parasco.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. So yeah, initially I had followed the East Side Access for some time, and I was always curious as to where the next station was going to be, where people could go to Grand Central. It seemed to me pretty intuitive that you would have a shuttle service on the Port Washington line that would continue on to Grand Central. The fact that service is just being blanketly cut in half to Penn Station, it just seems insane to me, considering the amount of money that we've spent on this project. And it would seem more intelligent, more efficient to me that we would have some sort of shuttle at Woodside, where the people going to Grand Central would get off at Woodside and go there, and the people that are going to Penn could continue on. And this way we could continue the level of service that is currently established on the Port Washington line, which is great. Also, in terms of economics, if you want white collar people to come back to work and you're taking away their express trains, it really doesn't give them a whole lot of incentive to do so. So I know there's a lot of smart people working on this. I think if everyone comes together with some intelligent ideas, we can get through this. But the initial schedule that was released, certainly in Manhasset, Great Neck, and Port Washington area, it leaves a lot to be desired.
Okay. I appreciate it, Dave. Thank you. So next we're going to have Ariana Parasco, followed by Ava Kirschenblatt.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi. Ariana Parasco, Port Washington resident. I'm going to cut right to the chase. Ms. Rinaldi, respectfully, you shared a lot of positive stats at the beginning of this meeting, but unfortunately 4 stops, Port, Plano, Manhasset, Great Neck, are the only losers in the whole equation of the East Side Access project. No other branch or train stops on the island are seeing a 7-minute plus increase in commute time. In terms of increasing service on this line, let's be clear. This is a restoration of the pre-COVID peak service schedule only. Additionally, I urge you to make a data-centric decision in respect to the Port Washington Express train. The outer zone Port Washington stops carry 80% of the ridership on the branch, and the inner Queens stations only 20% of the ridership. Maintaining the express zone split at Great Neck allows for a fair 50-50 service split between the inner and outer zone commuters. I'm a mom of 2 young babies, and this proposed schedule shift has a tremendous and negative impact on my quality of life. Devastating, really. I have to commute through Penn and to get to Jersey City. I will now have a slower train, only 1 train an hour with this proposed schedule. I will now have to leave my house almost an hour earlier to get to work at the same time. Who will take care of my children during that hour when daycare isn't even open? Now layer on the regular delays we all experience, missed trains, transfers, the ripple effect is enormous. This is unfathomable, unacceptable as a commuter. We're talking about progress in this meeting, but my commute will now be so much longer than my parents' commute 40 years ago. Think about that, 40 years. It feels like a massive step back for everyone who lives in Port and our surrounding communities, and I really urge you guys to reconsider and really hope that you guys can come to the table with an open mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we're going to have Michael Gilbert, followed by Human Danesh. Michael, are you there?
Actually, I think I got skipped. It's Eva Kirschenblatt.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
Okay.
my apologies.
Are you able to hear me? I'm sorry.
Totally fine, but hold on just one second.
Whoa.
I don't really have a minute and a half's worth of stuff to say. I don't think I can really bring anything to the table that hasn't been said already. I am a new resident of Port Washington, and while I was excited by obviously the East Side access, and actually also excited by the fact that there were more trains stopping in Woodside, both on the way, into the city and out, because I actually utilize that stop quite frequently when I do go into the office, which my office is in Long Island City. Still, I think that the changes were extraordinarily heavy-handed and definitely on a whole are not additive at all to the service that the Port Washington branch is experiencing. And for all the reasons that have been stated here, it makes no sense that our commute on this line that we all probably moved to this area to take advantage of are now getting longer as opposed to shorter, or even like staying the same at least. And the fact that the express trains have largely been eliminated on the proposed schedule is really unconscionable. And I think we can all agree that that doesn't make any sense. So as someone also said before, I know there's a lot of smart people working on this, and I have to have some faith that you're going to figure it out, but something definitely needs to be done. Like that schedule that was proposed really cannot stand. It is hurtful to the people who use this branch.
Thank you, Eva. Okay, next we'll have Michael Gilbert, sorry about that, followed by Human Danesh.
Yes, I would like to echo many of the same comments that have been made about the Port Washington branch. I think it's obvious, I hope it's obvious to the MTA that what you've struck is a real chord here, because there's so many people who have moved to these communities for the very purpose of having the express train service that the MTA has now decided to end. And that is hard to understand in the context of the taxpayers footing $11 billion of investment in public transportation, to see an obvious decrease in our service and an increase in the time it takes to get to Manhattan, be it Grand Central or Penn Station. I also think that the fact that the MTA seems to consider Penn Station and Grand Central to be interchangeable destination points in the off-peak evening time just really doesn't make any sense. As anybody who has experienced going to a game at Madison Square Garden knows, you go downstairs, if you miss your train, you're now waiting an hour for the next one. So in effect, you've cut that service in half as well. And then finally, I want to comment about the Port Washington Yard track extension, because from what I understand of it, there was opposition in the community because parking spots were going to be lost. But the proposal was made 13 years ago, at a time when the MTA promised that this job would be done. East Side access would be open in 2013, then 2016, then 2018, than 2020. So for people in the community to say, we really don't want to give up parking spots for a project that seems like it's never going to be completed made perfect sense. I wish the MTA had come back.
Please
to the
conclude your
community
remarks.
and made clear a year and a half ago that the cost of not giving up parking spots would be the loss of express service. There would have been a very different reaction, and I'm hoping we can get there even today, but it's a shame that we have to be at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we're going to have Human Danesh, followed by James Gabriel.
Hi, I'm Human Danesh. I'm actually a physician at Mount Sinai, which one would think that the East Side access would actually help. However, Mount Sinai is now expanded and my office is on 57th and 7th. But this isn't just about me. This is about all of the physicians that not only went in during COVID every single day, but we moved out here because of COVID and figured we could still get to our jobs at a reasonable hour and meet all of our requirements that we need to meet so that we can be there when we're needed at a reasonable within a certain amount of time. While 7 to 8 minutes doesn't seem like a lot, that'll actually force a lot of my colleagues that are living in and surrounding line on the Port Washington branch to actually consider moving again, even though we recently moved out here because of the easy commute back in so that we can be on call and be able to be with our families at the same time. It is unacceptable for one line to have a 7 to 8 minute increase and for everyone else to have a max of 1 minute increase. That hopefully is something that can be remedied, and that you're affecting the people that helped revive this city, literally, that then moved out here for quality of life and are now being penalized once again.
Thank you. So next we have James Gabriel, followed by Eric Kraus.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, great, thank you. My name is James Gabriel. I've been a Manhasset resident for about 30 years, grew up here and moved back about 10 years ago. One of the most critical factors in that decision process was the LIRR express train from Manhasset. And unfortunately, this draft station doesn't just remove that, which is clearly going to add hours per week, but also reduces train volume. My calculation was in the morning peak hours were about 50% less in volume versus the current schedule. Frankly, when I was informed about this draft schedule, I thought it was a joke and a rumor. It had to be. How could one set of communities, Great Neck, Manhasset, Plandome, and Port Washington, be so negatively impacted overall by a massive project of the scale designed to improve overall service? It's either due to incompetence, which I don't believe, or inconsideration, but either is unacceptable. And I urge the MTA tonight to consider not singling out this single line of communities and fix this mess and mass concern that they've created for us.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to have Eric Kraus, followed by Anthony Sanfilippo.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Eric Kraus. I've lived in Port Washington for 27 years, and I've been a commuter on the Long Island Railroad Port Washington branch for 27 years. I want to have my voice join the many other people who've already spoken and are yet to speak to voice my complaints about the way in which the schedule has been established. The MTA deserves congratulations for what is an incredible engineering feat in setting up the East Side access. And you'd think that the MTA could marshal similarly smart people to tackle the scheduling issues on the Port Washington branch and preserve peak trains during peak, express trains during peak commuting hours. The $10 billion plus that were spent to better serve Long Island Railroad and Long Island residents, and in fact to encourage more riders and eliminate drivers into Manhattan will clearly be undermined if riders decide to stay home and work from home rather than commute back into the city, or even worse, for those of us who might decide to drive into the city. The changes increase our commutes by multiple minutes, and that may not seem particularly long to the panel, but that's time that we would otherwise be able to spend having breakfast with our children or returning home for dinner with our families. Thanks very much. I hope that you can figure out a way in which to change these schedules and return some sanity to the scheduling for those of us who've chosen to live on the North Shore of Long Island, in part,
Please conclude your remarks.
In large measure because of the train service that the Port Washington branch permits. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we're going to have Anthony Sanfilippo, followed by Andrew Sparberg. Anthony, are you there? Okay, we're going to move on to Andrew Sparberg.
Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Oh, hey, Anthony. I guess it took a
Hi,
little bit longer. Okay, go ahead, yeah.
Sorry, my connection wasn't. Hi, I'm a Limbrook resident, and I'm not going to take much time here. My question is regarding the early hour trains going into the new Grand Central station, and I could use two different branches, Long Beach and Far Rockaway. There is nothing going in from like 2 a.m. till 6:08, which is 8 minutes late for a lot of people that work in that area. So I guess my question is if you guys could look into this and maybe add a couple trains that service that Grand Central station, in the early hours of the day. A lot of us start work early, like 5 or 6. That's it.
Great, thank you. So now we're going to have Andrew Sparberg, followed by Danny Shapira.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good evening. My name is Andreas Pavlakis. I'm a retired Long Island Railroad manager and a current transportation historian and CUNY faculty member. I'm ecstatic about the new Long Island Railroad service to Grand Central. And while I understand the concerns of the Port Washington branch folks, I still think it's a great service improvement for all riders with one more exception. And that exception is the issue of train service between Long Island and Atlantic Terminal in Brooklyn. I feel that forcing most Brooklyn passengers to transfer to and from shuttles at Jamaica is not a good idea, especially in the rush hours. Compared to today's transfers, which are typically cross-platform, this new setup is physically cumbersome and more time-consuming. The up and over movement is a burden for senior citizens, of which I am one. I'm still pretty spry, but I don't move as fast as I used to move. I'm not suggesting that you scrap the Jamaica-Brooklyn shuttles, but I am suggesting that a few more through rush hour trains to and from Atlantic Terminal, particularly from the Babylon, Port Jefferson, and Ronkonkoma branches, be added. I've been traveling on the Long Island Railroad for a total of 70 years since I was 4 years old. And for the last 44 years, I've been a continuous traveler as an employee and then now as a retiree, and before that as a commuter. So one consistent observation is that riders prefer a one-seat ride between their branch station and the Western Terminal without changing at Jamaica. Worst place a cross-platform transfer. Despite the increased Jamaica-Brooklyn service, I feel that the inconvenience of transferring is a negative byproduct of the new Grand Central service. And one more quick comment, please restore the paper branch timetables. This would be a great opportunity because of the various service changes that are being implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Next, we're going to have Rebecca Parker, followed by Arda Nazarian.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. I wanted to thank you for having this panel and hearing from us. And I want to echo what a lot of people have been saying as a Port Washington resident, and specifically thank our Assemblywoman Slitty and Senator Cappell for their efforts. And I think actually Ariana Parasco said a lot of what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. A huge reason many of us moved to Port Washington was because of this train line. It's been a huge reason for 50 years. My parents moved to Great Neck in the 1980s because of this train line and the school district as well. Many people have chosen office locations that are close to Penn if they can choose that. We plan our lives around the train schedule, and we'll have a worse commute than my parents did. I think there's going to be many repercussions from this train line change. As people realize what it means to them, it will not be just minutes, as was said before. It will be an hour when you miss your train. As with childcare, for example, if you have to take your kid to a bus and you have to get to your office by 9 a.m., the way I read the schedule, you're going to have to leave Port Washington on a 7:45 a.m. train, even if you're 5 or 10 minutes away from Penn Station. That's pretty unacceptable. And as people realize this, I just want to say again, there's going to be a lot of repercussions down the line here. Thank you again for this hearing, and I'm optimistic that we can reach a resolution that will not penalize the Port Washington line so heavily as this does. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also just want to remind everyone that if you're on the Zoom right now with a name that is different than what you registered with, please let us know so that we can make sure that you get to speak. Thank you. So next we're going to have Arda Nazarian, followed by Doug Dreyer.
Hi. I'm going to make this quick because so much has been said already, but I really want to put the emphasis on common sense. It seems to me like the changes, particularly to the Port Washington line, are the opposite of build it and they will come. I think some of you sitting there remember when the Port Washington line eliminated the half-hourly service from the Plandome station, and ridership dropped significantly. At that time, my kids were young. I ended up starting to drive in because if I had missed the half-hour train, it would mean I would miss school pickup and whatever else. So right now, what you are confronting is the challenge of managing efficiently new train service, the expenses that come with that, and everything else. But what you shouldn't do, and we're hoping you don't do, is penalize those train lines that are most heavily used, and really riders who, if the early morning commute hours and the late afternoon commute hours become reduced like proposed in the draft timetables, people are going to take the option of continuing to work from home, which is not good for anyone. So thanks for the opportunity to speak, and I just hope common sense prevails.
Great, thank you. So now we're going to have Doug Dreyer, followed by Anne Marie Shelley.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So there's two Doug Dryers. One is my son. You may come to him later on.
Okay.
My son, myself, and my daughter all use the LIRR. And as others have said, we chose this location so that we could get into Penn. My daughter goes to Jersey City. So what I think you've done is conveniently, sort of imposed restrictions to the Manhasset Port Washington line so that you can do tunnel maintenance. If tunnel maintenance is required, you should state that that's why you made these service changes and commit to reverting back to express trains as soon as the tunnel maintenance is complete. As said by many others, it seems unfairly imposed on the Manhasset Port Washington line. And I think you need to reconsider. This has been an $11 billion investment. And as others have said, we do not expect service to be reduced. It needs to be at least kept the same or improved. So this is unacceptable. And I ask you and all the smart minds you have to go back with your AI and digital learning capabilities and figure out a new schedule. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Anne Marie Shelley, followed by Stephen Lux. Anne Marie, are you there? Okay, we're going to go to Stephen Lux and Bill Pepane.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you. My name is Stephen Lux of Great Neck. The Long Island Railroad should reconsider the proposed Port Washington branch schedule. While I do applaud the benefits of serving both Grand Central and Penn Station, lengthened commute times do very little to improve the work-life balance of so many of us, already somewhat struggling a bit to adapt to the COVID-impacted world. While it sounds almost trivial to say an extra 7 to 15 minutes or so will have a real impact, anyone who has ridden the trains knows that these times can certainly vary. And if you've stopped at Willets Point on a game day, you know very well that those waiting travel times are much longer, often with highly energized fans crowding the trains. If you use just an average of 15 minutes a day extra added to the daily commute, put that over 250 days, you're really adding over 60 additional hours of unnecessary commuting time. Not 15 minutes, but 60 hours. My request is you do reconsider your algorithms that I'm sure you use to build the schedule and see if you can create a fair and reasonable train schedule that can also accommodate reasonable express service. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. So now we're going to have Bill Pepane, followed by Andreas Pavlakis.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you. My name is Bill Pepane. I'm a resident of Manhasset for 30 years. I moved back here with my family 7 years ago. And I don't want to repeat a lot of the points that have been made about the Port Washington line, but one thing I do want to point out is that historically, the Port Washington line has been in the top 3 for the Long Island Railroad in ridership with Babylon and Port Jefferson. Yet Babylon and Port Jefferson received increases and better service, and Port Washington did not. We were treated as the bottom 3. You can look at that, the 2018-2019 annual ridership report. There's a 40 to 45 minute gap between trains in the PM peak hours. If you look at the Penn Station trains, you miss a train at Penn Station, you have to wait 45 to 50 minutes to get another train to come back to Manhasset. This is unacceptable. It's not a storage issue with the trains. It's a schedule issue. When you have overcrowding because of the you also have overcrowding when with the City Field and US Open for 6 to 7 months during the year. It's not just a Manhasset, Washington issue, it's a greater New York issue. So we ask that you restore the peak express line trains, the peak schedule, and also restore the AM trains. There was a severe cut in the AM trains from Manhasset, and the only trains added in the AM are after 8:30 a.m. And that is unacceptable for people that need to be at work by 9 a.m. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so next we're going to have Andreas Pavlakis, followed by Matthew Alvey.
Hello, good afternoon. I hope you can hear me.
Yep.
As most of the things have been said previously, I will be relatively quick. Like many others, I moved to Manhasset recently with a very big factor in my decision being the quick commute to Penn Station, and the cancellation of the express trains is a big blow to the overall family decision that we move to this location. So I urge the MTA representatives to reconsider their decision and the timetables that were published. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Matthew Alvey, followed by Ron Troy.
Hi, my name is Matthew Alvey. I'm a resident of Port Washington. I run a Facebook group. It has 550 Port Washington commuters on it. And in 2013, the Long Island Railroad tried to remove between 50 and 100 parking spots at the train station to add a new track and store more trains. The community was strongly opposed to that initial Long Island Railroad plan. We fought it because of the high demand for parking at the station at the time and the heavy-handed approach that the LIRR took to the initial proposal. I started a petition and we worked with local officials to come up with alternatives. The Long Island Railroad never came back with an alternative plan, and that was 9 years ago. Now the railroad wants to railroad us by reducing peak service for port commuters. And let me be clear, the service for the port commuter will be reduced, not increased with these new timetables, as you heard from the other commuters. If you don't need to go to Grand Central, you'll have fewer peak express trains and your trip will be longer. And those are the facts. And I find it reprehensible that the plan was presented the way it was, hiding the fact that peak express service was drastically reduced and commuting times increased for port commuters by up to 10 minutes, while the railroad advertised 1 to 2 minute increases on average. Even the introductory comments glossed over these facts, and I think the Long Island Railroad owes us the truth. I respectfully ask that you come up with new timetables to improve the service for the port commuter. If you need to store more trains in port, I suggest you immediately start the dialogue with the town of North Hempstead Supervisor DeCina, Senator Kaplan, Assemblywoman that was on the call earlier, and the commuters to create a plan that balances the needs of our community as well as the Long Island Railroad. Thank you for having this forum, and thank you for introducing service to Grand Central.
Thank you. So next we're going to have Ron Troy, followed by Allison Biller.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, there we go. I'm starting my video. My name is Ron Troy. I'm not affiliated with any organization. I live in East Northport, and on eastbound trips, I could go to either Huntington or to, say, East Northport, but because of the way the draft schedules chop up the schedule into 3 pieces, I can't tell what works. The only thing that I see, and I may see it wrong, is hardly any evening service past around 7 o'clock to get out of Manhattan and get out here. That's problem 1. Problem 2, there's almost no reverse commute service still. I mean, I know part of it is the single track, but 3-4 hour breaks in between, that's not about single track. You think that would have changed a bit. And in general, Port Jeff service stinks. A few good trains, and that's about it. But we don't seem to have had much benefit out of all this. And of course, we don't have direct service to Grand Central. Any of us will have to change trains to take advantage of it. Please think about this and consider electrification and M-cars. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Allison Biller, followed by Steve Weinberg. Allison, are you there? Hi, Allison. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Great.
Sorry. I think I'm like the wrong way. Sorry, I'm going to. Sorry about that. I'll just hide my view for now. My name is Allison Billa, and I am a Port Washington resident. I'm also a working mother and a Long Island Railroad rider for decades. I think I've been commuting into the city daily for about 14 or 15 years. While I commend the Long Island Railroad, the MTA, New York State, for adding a more accessible ways to get into certain parts of the city, the new proposed timetables for Port Washington is troubling at best. The elimination of express trains and the reduction of the number of trains coming and departing from Penn Station is not a matter of inconsequential minutes. Rather, this will disrupt my ability to fulfill my job, along with not having to worry about whether or not I'll be able to pick up my children from their daycare in a timely fashion. It also intensifies the stress that will be caused by subway delays, which unfortunately, it's something that's pretty common. This is a time when everyone seems to want to be more in tune to the mental health and well-being of people. And if the goal is to increase the number of city people commuting into the city, I don't think that this train schedule is going to increase it. I mean, I personally am commuting every day, but I can tell you that for employees that are not going to require it, this will not help enable it. My husband and I chose to raise our family in Port Washington for this train line, and I would
Please
hate
conclude
for
your
us
remarks.
to leave Port Washington because of this train line.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Mayor Steve Weinberg, followed by Councilmember Selvino Brooks Powers. You're on, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening. I'm Steve Weinberg, Mayor of the Village of Thomaston, and I'm also Vice President of the Great Neck Village Officials Association. We've actually found out from Susan Lepatkin, the Mayor of Village of Kensington, that there's been express train service to Great Neck for over 100 years. There's a 1915 brochure that advertises commuting between Penn Station and Kensington, or Great Neck, for 26 minutes. 24 to 26 minutes is the time for express train service from Great Neck to Manhattan. Obviously, all Great Neck villages, the mayors, the unincorporated areas by the town of North Hempstead, were shocked to learn that the express train service would be eliminated from Great Neck. Express train service, that is 6 express trains in the morning, 8 express trains in the evening, lengthening the time for commuting by over 6 minutes, or very often 8 minutes, over 30%. Obviously, our residents bought their houses or their apartments or moved here for express train service that's been occurring over 100 years, and that must not be eliminated. This is a part of our investment of our community, the fabric of our infrastructure. The pocket track was extended in the Village of Thomaston in order to accommodate additional train service into Manhattan, but we're not getting that with this proposed schedule, and express trains are being eliminated. So that's why we submitted a statement on behalf of all the mayors and on behalf of all of our local officials that restoration of express train service must be made between Great Neck and New York City. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Councilmember Selvino Brooks Powers, followed by Frank Famiglietti.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you. I am Councilwoman Brooks Powers, representing the 31st Council District in Southeast Queens and Eastern Rockaway. I'd like to thank President Rinaldi of the MTA for hosting tonight's public hearing on the new Long Island Railroad service patterns and the opening of Grand Central Madison. My district is home to 3 Long Island Railroad stations, Laurelton, Rosedale, and Far Rockaway. So I appreciate the timely opportunity to speak on these improvements. As we continue to adjust to the new COVID normal, our commuting patterns may look different, but New Yorkers still deserve a transportation system that meets them where they are and provides convenient, affordable options day or night. With the opening of Grand Central Madison, Long Island Railroad passengers will soon have more options for travel to Manhattan. If we want to bring riders back onto public transit at pre-pandemic levels, we must ensure that commuter rail is an attractive option. More frequent service means a more convenient service, and I hope that riders across Queens and Long Island will benefit from the proposed shorter headways of this plan. I'm also curious to see how the Jamaica Transfer will fit with the broader service patterns. While many of my constituents will benefit from faster, more frequent one-seat rides to Manhattan, I want to be sure that we are not unnecessarily inconveniencing riders who journey to Atlantic Terminal with an inconvenient transfer or excessive wait at Jamaica. I'd also like to highlight the expanded city ticket and Atlantic ticket programs, which have brought affordable rides to my constituents. Unfortunately, Far Rockaway residents are still not eligible for this discount. We must figure out how to expand these affordable options equitably and extend them to people who would benefit from them most. I'd like to hear from the MTA on any studies and projections they have conducted to evaluate how these service changes align with New Yorkers' new post-pandemic commutes. And I encourage the MTA to continue engaging directly with New Yorkers across their service area to understand their commuting needs, especially communities like the one that I represent, where oftentimes we have 2 fare zones. We want to ensure that the Long Island Railroad does not now become a 2 fare zone in many instances for our riders. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Frank Famiglietti, followed by Michael Snow.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. I'll be quick. I know that we've a lot of this has been covered already. As you might imagine, as you might have guessed, I'm calling from, wait for it, Port Washington. Just like just about everybody else, I feel like on this in this meeting today, and I hope you've all taken notice of the percentage of people who are calling up from the Port Washington line, just livid about these changes. I'm not going to reiterate and rehash what a lot of other people have said. Yeah, of course, I did buy my house in Port Washington in large part because of the commute, as did many of my neighbors. Just really implore you all to see to see the light and restore our express trains. It's really just unacceptable, this bomb that you've dropped on us. And I just also like to say to our elected representatives and their staff, Congressman DeSena, our assembly people, our state senators, who I know are all on this meeting and listening right now. I've talked to so many of my fellow residents about this, and we are all upset, and everyone is going to be single issue voters as it relates to how this all turns out. So I implore our elected representatives to lean on the MTA and lean on the LIRR on behalf of all your constituents. Every constituent of Great Neck, Manhasset, Plandome, and Port Washington will be negatively affected by this, whether you commute or not, because our home prices are going to suffer. You've already heard a number of people talk about leaving town on this call today as a result of these drastic reductions in service. So I thank you for your time. I thank you for having this meeting, and I please ask you to see the light and help the Port Washington line. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Michael Snow, followed by Trinko Curtis.
We're good. Good evening. Thank you for this forum. My name is Michael Snow. I live in Brooklyn and I use the Far Rockaway line to commute between Atlantic Terminal and Long Island. I currently have a one-seat 40-minute ride. New timetable reduces the number of weekday one-seat rides from 27 to 0. Removes all time transfers, adding between 12 to 20 minutes to every commute and increased travel time of 50%, and requires me to move over multiple tracks to transfer at Jamaica. Anything you can do to help with this would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Trinko Curtis, followed by Jessica Tuchinski.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm Kurt Trinko. I live in Port Washington. I've ridden the trains for 40 years. There isn't much space to increase the storage of trains. It's in the middle of the business district, and between Port Washington and Great Neck is one track. So it's hard to get the express trains in and out, I know. But somehow they were doing it before and now they can't do it. I don't ask. I'm saying we have to find a solution for this. And you've heard from a lot of people about this, but and I know that the railroad, the elected officials, and the commuters have committed themselves to talking about this and finding a solution. So thank you very much. And I applaud your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Jessica Tuchinski, followed by Stephen Sue.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having this meeting. It's really appreciated. My name is Jessica Tuchinski. I'm a resident of Great Neck. I grew up in Great Neck I went to high school in Manhattan, so I used to take the train in all the time, and now I commute into Manhattan. The one thing I think a lot of people have made the point about express trains and how, it would be great that we had 26 minutes into the city, and now we won't have that anymore. I also want to note one other thing, which is between 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning, when I think the vast majority of people want to commute in. If I wanted to commute in tomorrow, I could make a 7:30 a.m. express train. I could make a 7:47 a.m. express train. I could make a 7:49 a.m. express train. I could make a 7:56. I could make an 8:17 a.m. express train, or I could make an 8:28. Those are all the trains that are available to me tomorrow if I wanted to go in to my office between 7:30 and 8:30 a.m. With this new schedule, I would be able to make either a 7:55 or an 8:24. That is a tremendous reduction in the service for Great Neck, Manhasset, Plandome, and Port Washington. It's absolutely unacceptable. It means that people, if they miss their train, aren't going to be able to get into work on time. And I ask that not only do you reconsider the overall kind of express train service, but that you also take a hard look at the peak times that people actually need to commute into the city and reevaluate the train schedule as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Stephen Sue, and then after that, we'll have Genesis Nieves.
Yeah, hi. I can just add to what everyone has said here. I'm also a commuter from Great Neck, and I would simply say that your proposed changes are simply things that are completely unacceptable and are going to cause great harm to everyone who's a commuter in Nassau County on the Port Washington line. And I think that I sent you a separate note, but I would hope that you could all reconsider that or take whatever actions that need to be taken, because so much of East Side Access is great and wonderful, and it would be great for all of us to enjoy the benefits of that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next, we'll have Genesis Nieves, followed by Wenfeng Tan. Okay, we're going to go to Wenfeng Tan, followed by Jason Rabinowitz. Okay, we're going to go to Jason Rabinowitz, followed by Mark Bunham.
Hello. There's been a lot of talk tonight about Port Washington rides increasing by 7 minutes, but that's nothing compared to the proposed Brooklyn service. Brooklyn riders are being shouldered with an unreasonable increase in travel times, far and above anyone else, and rider concerns are not being taken seriously. I use the Far Rockaway Branch. The trip from Atlantic Terminal is a single train 37-minute ride, but the proposed schedule increases that to 1 hour and 2 minutes, 62 minutes. That's a 60% increase in overall travel time. And Far Rockaway isn't even seeing any increased service. It's just being shifted from Brooklyn to Manhattan. Nearly all riders from Brooklyn must now take a shuttle train to Jamaica, traverse multiple stairways that represent now an unnecessary accessibility issue, and then connect to another train that still runs just once an hour and no longer has any time connections. One extra shuttle train per hour off-peak doesn't benefit riders. It doesn't connect to anything. Many of the trains I typically take today now arrive just 1 minute before or after a Brooklyn train departure, meaning all of those riders will now have to wait 15, 20, or 25 minutes at Jamaica to continue their journey to or from Brooklyn. This trip and many others are now longer by transit than by driving, a crucial decision factor in getting people to take the train instead of driving. If Atlantic Terminal service can't operate more frequently because of the entirely predictable fleet constraints, this new schedule should not be implemented until the fleet can support it. I urge the Long Island Railroad to revise the proposed schedule timelines and release a schedule that doesn't punish Brooklyn riders at the expense of those going to Manhattan. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Mark Bunham, followed by Dawn Tenenbaum.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, my name is Mark Bunham. I live in Great Neck. Most of what I have to say is been said already. I've been commuting on the Port Washington line for a long time, and I really just want to specifically address the morning rush hour commute. Most people commute between the hours of 7:45 a.m. and 8:30 a.m. so that they can be in Manhattan at time to go to work. In February 2020, prior to COVID and the COVID changes that were made, there was a 747 from Great Neck, an 804, an 817, an 824, and an 829. Most of those trains were pretty full. Those are 5 trains. Under your proposed schedule, there are 2 trains, one to Penn Station, one to Grand Central. How anyone can say with a straight face that this is an increase in service is beyond me. It's just mind-boggling that the MTA is claiming this is an increase in service when you're reducing 5 trains to 2 trains, and each of which of the 2 trains is to a different station. You've got to take a hard look at this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Dawn Tenenbaum, followed by Donna Westervit.
Hi, I'm Dawn Tenenbaum. I just wanted to show my support. I'm not going to take a lot of time. I just want to basically say what everyone else has said. I commute from Manhasset, and how disappointed I am with the change in the train schedule. I hope the MTA and the LIRR will reconsider, and I hope so. Please do. And I appreciate you taking this request. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Donna Westervit, followed by Jason Anthony.
Hi, do you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Thank you. My name is Donna Westervelt. I'm disappointed with the Port Washington schedule, but don't tune out because I have something different to say. I also like to express my disappointment with my elected representatives for failing to advocate for their constituents. 2 points. Having moved to Douglaston specifically for the railroad, it has been maddening to see that passengers in Northeast Queens are treated as second-class citizens. It is simply wrong that presently trains to and from Douglaston have a longer duration than trains to and from Port, even though they're traveling fewer miles. This injustice that discriminated against lower income and minority passengers was corrected in the proposed schedule. I thank you for that, even though it means I will never have a seat in the morning because the train is going to be filled with complainers from points east, bringing a sense of entitlement that frankly boggles the mind. However, the proposed schedule isn't good. I'm curious if anyone considered a boots on the ground approach to measuring a commute, literally from platform to street. My office is over Grand Central. Penn is irrelevant. They are not interchangeable. 1 hour gaps between services unacceptable. I'd be better off working from home. Thank you again. Please stop discriminating against Queens commuters.
Thank you. Next is Jason Anthony, followed by Carol Bass. Jason, I think you're muted.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Jason Anthony from Amazon Labor Union. I totally agree with Jason Winowitz regarding the loss of the Red Brooklyn service. But I have a very, very clear message for those who live in Nassau County. The facts are clear. You guys are the Long Island privilege. And here's why. You guys elected a Republican to represent you guys. And the fact is that I am an essential worker. I had to work during COVID. And here's why. I'm losing on the red service between Brooklyn and Long Island. The Port Washington train is now losing the red service between Port Washington and Manhattan. They're complaining because of losing express trains. Give me a break here. I cannot even get from Brooklyn to Valley Stream. I can only get to Jamaica here. Facts speak louder than words here.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Neil Picker, followed by Guotao Luan. Okay, we're going to move to Guotao Luan, followed by Ruth Kleinman. Okay, we're going to go to Ruth Kleinman, followed by Aaron Condon.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for hosting this and listening to everybody's feedback. Like many people here, I am a resident of Port Washington. I also grew up in Port Washington and proud to be a resident and a homeowner here with my family. I don't have so much new to present tonight, but I did want to go back to the numbers of trains being offered. I am a commuter to Penn Station and will continue to be based on my office location. And before this meeting, I looked at the current options, as other folks have mentioned, in the early morning hours, of which I have 7 options, as well as my partner, who is also a commuter, 7 options in the morning. With this new proposed schedule, it will be going down to 3 during the same time frame. In the afternoon, evening coming back, during the time frame that my partner or I would be coming back, we have 9 options, and that's going down to 5. So like many other commuters and residents all over, I thank you for listening to all of us. Every voice matters, every person matters, every opinion matters. So thank you to all of you at the MTA, as well as our elected officials who are trying to make this right for all people involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Next, we're going to go to Aaron Condon, followed by Joe Brayman.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Thanks for hearing us tonight. I don't think I'm going to add anything new here, but just wanted to show my concern as a resident of Port Washington with losing the express train. It will add a lot of time to our commute and really just cause lots of headaches, as you know, you've expressed and heard tonight. So thank you for hearing us, and that's it.
Thank you. Next, we're going to go to Joe Brayman, followed by Daniel Herman. Okay, we're going to go to Rebecca Sassouni. Sorry for just calling you up, but the other 2 aren't here.
Hello.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm reluctant to reiterate, but I'm only going to say the following. I am actually not personally affected, and I still sat through the Zoom because I think that there are so many people who are going to be affected by these changes, and it is precisely them who are not able to attend a meeting that is during the dinner hour over summer. Those are the people who are employees, who commute from apartment dwellings here in Great Neck, and I'm sure also in Manhasset and in Port Washington and Plandome, but I'm from Great Neck. People who are at risk of losing their childcare or being late for their child, who are going to then turn and expect others to come and try to fetch their children from school. People who are worried about running late. And you've already heard people worried about their transfers on the subway and being late. It's not just that they're going to be stressed out. They're not going to be able to provide for their children and get to work. And these are foreseeable changes that you can change your minds on and backtrack on so that you don't negatively impact them. Here in Great Neck, we are also on the cusp of having multiple new apartment dwellings, which have all been approved, large apartment dwellings and condos that are going to be built here in the next 5 or 6 years. So the numbers here, the demographics here of people who are going to be relying on the Great Neck access and the ability to get to Manhattan rapidly without delay is about to increase, not decrease. And that's probably true in the other communities affected besides Great Neck. Lastly, I am a homeowner, and my young children are now young adults. So we're talking about people who can barely afford to get apartments for themselves, who can barely get jobs, who have to commute, who are relying on Uber and moms and dads to get them to the station, like my children. They're all going to be negatively impacted, as well as the physicians and the teachers and the others you've spoken about. And the last thing I'll say is I happen to be, and it's important to me, a trustee of the local school district. We have thousands of employees and thousands of parents who,
Please
to
conclude
the
your
minute,
remarks.
are planning their commutes so that they can fetch their children and do their jobs. And you are affecting all of them negatively. And I urge you to change your plans while you have time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Scott Lynn, followed by Caroline Scheffler.
Hi, I wanted to echo many of the comments my fellow commuters from the Port Washington line have already so eloquently communicated. I was actually really excited about East Side access as I work on the East Side, but I can't understate the disappointment when I saw the actual timetables. I don't think I really have to rehash what's already been said, but it did make me wonder upon seeing that schedule if the MTA engaged any commuters from the Port Washington line before they came up with that timetable, because it universally is a disappointment for our line. So when the CEO, threw out statistics on how it broadly improved commute times across the network, I wonder if the Port Washington line was completely left out of those statistics, because it is an absolute disappointment. And I urge you to reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Next up, we're going to have Caroline Scheffler, followed by Sarah Rivka Kododadian.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. I'm Carolyn. I live in Great Neck. And again, I'm just reiterating what everyone else has been saying. I did move to Great Neck for the commute. I've lived here for over 20 years. And I bought my apartment right across the street from the train station. And just having the express commute makes all the difference in the world. And there are quite a few apartment buildings that just went up right in the area. So that is many, many more commuters. And my concern is the crowding. Right now, when I get on my train at Great Neck, I'm standing, and I just can't imagine what it's going to be like with fewer trains. People are still not sitting in the middle seat because of COVID, which I understand, but I get very anxious in crowds. So that's my main concern, is the overcrowding. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay.
Next, we're going to have Sarah Rivka Kododadian. Again, I hope I pronounced that right. Followed by David Vieser.
Hi,
Hello.
good evening. So like everyone else, hello. So like everyone else, I've reviewed the proposed changes, and they completely mess up the commute from Great Neck to the city. For those of us like me who rely on the Port Washington Express train to get to school, these changes would be extremely inconvenient. I thought that as time goes on, we'd find a way to reduce commute times, but it looks like we're not going in that direction. I really hope the draft does not become permanent. Getting rid of our trains will directly increase our commute times. We are really not interested in that. Please reconsider. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Next, we're going to have David Vieser, followed by Rebecca Goldberg.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, thank you very much, panel. And I just want to bring up, as a person who's been riding Long Island Railroad for almost 30 years, the whole situation with Port Washington includes the whole parking lot and getting the extra trains there for the express. So, you know, the community was NIMBY before, not in my backyard. Now it sounds like, please bring it into my backyard. I'm more of a Babylon traveler, and I have a concern with the Jamaica connections. I know what we're doing with the Atlantic Terminal and running the shuttle back and forth to Jamaica. It seems like that's going to have to be what it is. But it seems like you're focused on Grand Central a little too much. You're going to see more, I think, Penn Station 70-30. 70% people going to Penn, 30% maybe going to Grand Central. Right now, you guys have it sitting at 50-40, and I think you might be overweighing the amount of people going there. I want to also mention reverse commute. Our world has changed since 2019. You're still learning as a railroad exactly how to deal with it, and we're still learning as commuters how to, the fact that we're going different places now. Please consider getting rid of the whole peak situation, maybe increase. I don't, you know, when you went off peak for the whole time of the pandemic, that made a lot more sense. I even think you have to look at the schedules completely and understand that rush hours as we knew them are not going to be there anymore. More early trains, more 5 a.m. type trains going into the city are going to be critical. And thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Next, we're going to have Rebecca Goldberg, followed by Monica June.
Hi, good evening. I'm here tonight as a person with family who rides the Babylon branch and relies on direct service to and from Atlantic Terminal. This direct service is being decimated with the draft proposed timetable. Right now, with the draft table, the first train from the Babylon branch anywhere near our home doesn't leave until 8:33 in the morning, gets into Atlantic way too late for anybody to get to work. For the reverse commute, leaving Atlantic Terminal, the first train back to the Babylon branch doesn't leave Brooklyn until 7:24 p.m. This is completely useless for us. We would not be able to use it. This whole thing is being presented as improved service, and it's actually hurting us and thousands of other potential customers. One thing that's going to happen is that even if people could use the Jamaica shuttles or transfers or whatever is going to happen, a lot of people are not going to do that. So instead of taking a drive to the local Babylon branch station, park, take the train, come back and home at the end of the day, they're going to need somebody to drop them off in the morning to a mainline branch, causing overcrowded on the main line. Then they're going to need the second round trip in the evening, causing double the traffic, a lot more headache and heartache for people who commute. And it relates to a lot of unidentified traffic impacts on the roads that serve the mainline train stations. So that includes Old Country Road, Merrick Avenue, Post Avenue, 106, 107, Wansett Parkway, Meadowbrook Parkway, Seaford Oyster Bay. People are going to have to be creating extra traffic by the main line because the Babylon branch will be completely useless for us going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Monica June, followed by Aaron Halpern.
Hi, sorry. I think I'm on now. Sorry about that.
You are.
Okay, great. As a working mom of two toddlers, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, I'm very much in the thick of it. I am very disappointed and concerned about the draft East Side Access train schedule for Manhasset riders. The overwhelming reason my family chose to settle in Manhasset, and I convinced my husband from Westchester to live here despite his concerns and the high home prices, was the Port Washington Express trains and morning train schedule. As someone who commutes to Midtown East every day, I've been very excited about the East Side Access project, but this isn't it. I appreciate that it's been a very, very, it's been a hell of an effort to increase train service across Long Island, but it's important to appreciate the financial sacrifice residents have made to settle in Port Washington and Manhasset with the expectation that they'd have access to a great train line. Decreasing such service after decades of reliability is a fundamental change and one that will affect many working parents. Please restore the express trains from Manhasset as a first step. I was born and raised in Long Island and have two parents who rode the train into the city for work from Manhasset train station for most of my childhood. It's really going to give working parents time with their children. Please restore it. Thank you so much for your time and consideration. I appreciate the public session tonight.
Great, thank you. Next, we're going to have Aaron Halpern, followed by Councilmember Marianne Delamonte.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Aaron Halpern. I live in Great Neck. Specifically, I live in the village of Thomaston. I'm also a Board of Trustee here, a member of the Board of Trustees for the village of Thomaston. I want to thank the MTA for having this open hearing at the outset. However, I do want to convey strong disappointment with the proposed schedule and the elimination of the express routes to Long Island and in particular Great Neck. You've heard a lot of concerns, and I want to echo those concerns. This is a service that we have had in our community for a very long time. I think it's been in existence for over a century. We have residential people who moved out here for that very reason of being able to commute into the city. And, you know, it's unfortunate that the benefits mentioned in the panel's opening remarks regarding the reduction of running times and other benefits are just not applicable to Long Island commuters on our line. In exchange for allowing a pocket rail, we, in Great Neck and in our village, we have approximately, I would say, 20% longer commute times. And very significantly, we're going to experience a significant increase in crowds. This is not better service. We, as a community, I'm hearing residents, and you know there is a concern in our community that there were misrepresentations made to our community about better service, and obviously that is not the case. We are not getting better service. On the contrary, and I request that the MTA reconsider its decision on this proposed schedule and revise the schedule so that it provides what was promised to our community, and that is better service and certainly not worse service.
Please conclude your, thank you. Okay, next we're going to move on to Councilmember Marianne Delamonte, followed by Brett Arnstein.
Do you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. My name is Marianne Delmonte, and I'm the councilwoman from the town of North Hempstead who represents Port Washington, part of Manhasset, and a small portion of Roslyn. Upon seeing the MTA's draft schedule, I and other elected officials met with the Long Island Railroad, and we have another meeting scheduled for tomorrow. I look forward to renewing the talks that took place years ago before I was in office with the Long Island Railroad. I don't need to reiterate what you've heard tonight or what has been said over the last few weeks, but we've heard real concerns from residents tonight, and I agree with them. I'm committed to working with President Rinaldi, Mr. Hector Garcia, and of course you, Nick, and the Long Island Railroad to come up with a resolution. Thank you for letting me speak this evening.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Brett Arnstein, followed by Paul Allo. Okay, we're going to move to Paul Allo next, followed by Lauren Miller.
Hello?
You're on.
Okay. Thank you for letting me speak. I've been a resident of Port Washington for nearly 40 years. In that time, I mean, a lot of people have said how great the Long Island Railroad experience is. Actually, given how close Port Washington is to Manhattan, it's actually very long, and it's very long when you consider, even for a 35-minute so-called express line, that the trains now usually take longer than that. That a person going to the Port Washington station has to get there, arrange for parking, which is severely inadequate. It has been inadequate for many years. And then in Manhattan, has to get to their place of office. It's obviously a plus to have some service in the East Side, which is long overdue. But the problem with this is that it increases, it goes in the wrong direction for commuting. And I would just point out that most places in the world, most other cities, the commuting experience is much better, it is much quicker, and it puts New York and Port Washington at a competitive disadvantage when we have such service that is a disadvantage to people being able to commute. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Next, we're going to go to Denise Kavanaugh, followed by Eric Brandvold. Denise, are you there? Okay, we're going to move to Eric Brandvold, followed by Lisa Creighton. Okay, we're going to Lisa Creighton.
Unmute. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. My name is Lisa Creighton. I am a resident of Port Washington and a longtime commuter into Manhattan. I'm not going to repeat all the points that have been made already. I certainly echo all of them. I do want to underscore just a couple that I think have not been drawn out as much as many of the others, and that is that our line is the line that services Citi Field and the US Open. And when there is a Mets game, there is so many more people riding the line as it is. The idea that you might reduce the amount of trains or express trains in the evening is just going to cause a massive problem. Overcrowding, it's just going to be absolutely unbearable as a rider. And And the other point that I don't think I have heard is about what happens in Penn Station when a train is canceled because of some sort of track condition, and we all have to wait for the next train, and Penn Station fills up with people, and then there's, people trampling over each other to try and get on the next available train home in the evening. Sometimes these things have actually even been picked up on the news because Penn Station has had to be closed because of overcrowding. Now imagine that there are fewer trains to even get on in the evening, and I just can't even imagine what that's going to look like. And I don't know that the MTA has actually taken that into consideration. So I would just ask that for all the reasons that people have said, that you please reconsider the proposed changes and restore the service to at least what it is now, and then look to make improvements in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Elizabeth O'Shea, followed by Irene Condella. Okay, we're going to move to Irene Condella, followed by Richard Pavlakis. Okay, we're going to move on and go to Richard Pavlakis, followed by Sean Conroy.
Sorry about that. So I live in Port Washington, and like many families here, we have two working parents in the family, and the express trains are not a nice to have, they are a need to have. And I'm sure those of us who live in Port Washington take issue with the implication earlier that we have a sense of entitlement. Port Washington is a very diverse community, much more diverse than some of the communities mentioned earlier that seem to put us on a pedestal. We're not. Many of us work, and even just the 10 minutes, which may not have registered as impactful by the MTA, but with the school bus schedules, barely allowing working parents to get their kids to school and then rushing off to the train with the pre-COVID schedule. Now, in some instances, parents will have to leave up to an hour early to make it to work on time. And then on the way home, the aftercare facilities that many of us use mandate pickup by 6:30 p.m., which means working parents would have to leave work before 5 p.m. to make it the closing time. So now we're going to have to try to locate elusive paid childcare for an hour or two here and there in the mornings and or evenings. So for many, going to work in the city, which is mandatory, will not be practical. And the whole point of raising ridership and revenue is that we increase the tax base for both Port Washington and the Port Washington line where we live, as well as New York City. That won't be practical. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Sean Conroy, followed by Andrew Cronson.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. I'm a resident of Port Washington. We moved here in April of 2021. We spent a fortune on a house that we really barely can afford the mortgage on. And we could have had a house twice the size in Westchester, but we really liked the availability of the express train in Port Washington, and that's why we moved here. I think the community here has two really great things to offer, one being the schools and the other being the express train to the city in 35 minutes. I will be relying on that every day, and I'm very concerned about the value of the house that we just bought and are going to spend our lives paying back. I don't think it's fair to compare. I heard somebody before talking about Douglaston and not to forget about Queens, which I don't want Queens to be forgotten about, but somebody also mentioned that there was an 80% of ridership coming out of Great Neck, Manhasset, Plandome, and Port Washington. So I think it's more of just, there's only so many people that, you have to, that you can please. And that's where the vast, majority of the ridership is coming from on the Port Washington line. And I only think it's fair to make sure that their concerns are predominantly the ones being addressed since their service is being cut back so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Next, we're going to have Andrew Cronson, followed by Robert Hale.
Good evening. I want to first take a moment to acknowledge the interpreters for their work behind the scenes. Thank you for your help. My name is Andrew Cronson. I have been a Long Island resident for my whole life. I commuted as a student to NYU. We'll be doing it again to attend Columbia for a master's in urban planning. For well over a century, the Port Washington Railroad has been a lifeblood of economic activity and development for the peninsula. Like for many, it is the reason my family moved to Manhasset and has stayed here. The notion of expedient express service has remained a constant, 30 minutes express from Manhasset as early as 1928. That is all about to change, putting that unique mainstay of our area in great jeopardy and thusly the value of all our properties. Instead of the illusory changes currently being peddled by Governor Hochul under the Empire Station Plan, it is time to make real improvements to the infrastructure that runs our transit on Long Island. There will be no overhaul as it currently stands for our experience. It is long overdue to investigate with a hard look to implement solutions like through running to increase capacity for all branches and expanding the storage lot of Port Washington for waiting trains and building an above ground Penn Station. That is true regional unified connectivity and the reimagined transformative rail service like other leading developed countries have. Anything else is a bait and switch at the public's expense. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Next, we're going to have Robert Hale, followed by Alejandro De La Campa.
Hello, my name is Robert Hale, and I'm with the Effective Transit Alliance. We are a technically focused transit advocacy group. The upcoming schedule changes that will finally provide direct service between Long Island and Grand Central have a lot to like. The mainline and Babylon branches will get more consistent service and greater off-peak and reverse peak frequency. The West Hempstead branch now gets hourly service to Atlantic Terminal. However, the schedules leave much to be desired. Travel times to Atlantic Terminal would increase, and many off-peak and weekend trips would require transfers of 20 minutes or more. Port Washington branch travel times to Midtown would increase. The schedules would have no service in diesel territory. We hope to see a new emphasis on off-peak and weekend service. Crucially, off-peak service is relatively easy to add, since cruising trains are most constrained at rush hour. A good start would be to increase Atlantic branch service to 4 trains per hour off-peak and 8 at peak, and at least off-peak time transfers. Queens and Nassau branches should get a solid 3 to 4 trains per hour. Beyond Jamaica, all trains must stop at major transfer points such as Hicksville, Valley Stream, and Lynbrook. In particular, increased mainline service at Woodside would make Port Washington trips more palatable. we suggest the LIRR revisit its policy of operating its trains at less than their maximum acceleration and braking rates, which would reduce the travel time penalty for each stop. The way forward for the LIRR is to run so that riders of all types can show up and go at any time. And we hope that schedules are continually modified accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Next, we're going to have Alejandro De La Campa, followed by Brett Coppins.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Great, thank you. My name is Alejandro De La Campa. I am a Manhasset resident. I have been for 10 years. I have been a Long Island resident my entire life. As many of my colleagues, neighbors, friends have already expressed at this meeting and the last, I really cannot see the current time schedule anything less than an assassination of the current and historical ridership of these 4 stations. I won't go through some of the other points that people have already mentioned. I mean, I do think it's a little odd that there's been so few stations affected when I think there's roughly 124 Long Island Railroad stations. But let's get into some other things that I think some people mentioned, but really should be discussed with more thought. Metz-Willett Station is currently a roughly phantom/permanent stop. That's currently not on the schedule. So while the proposed schedule is roughly 30% higher on average, when you add back Metz-Willets, which I don't think is going back anytime soon, given its COVID status, it'll be even higher. And then when you start acting, any sort of events that take place, it's going to be even worse. Secondarily, you've seen what happened during COVID. There was a mass exodus out of the city. People have bought homes all over the suburbs, and as a result, when ridership does finally come back, which, by the way, I know of several corporates who have returned to office this week. So I'm sure there's been an increase in ridership. That'll also be stressed. In terms of timetables, I think things like 4:10, 4:45, et cetera, express trains are not really helpful. I think that more express trains between 5 and 6 p.m. or 5 and 7 p.m. are really what's required. I would also echo, somebody said that the split between Grand Central and Penn Station will be roughly 70-30. I sort of think, I echo that. I think, over time, that might be something to consider. Yep. Final thing is, instead of staggered every other at arrival stations, consider doing them in block to avoid some of that issue. If someone misses a train, someone at least knows the next one will be right behind. Thank you for all your consideration. Thank you for the time, and I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Alejandro. Next, we're going to have Brett Coppins, followed by Carrie Gannon. Brett, are you here? Okay. We're going to move to Carrie Gannon then.
Hi, this is Carrie Gannon. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi. Yes, thank you for taking the time to host this meeting. I, too, am a Port Washington resident who has been commuting for over 10 years. I actually have been commuting throughout the pandemic on a normal basis of 4 to 5 times a week and will continue to do so. I, like others, will not reiterate every point, but want to echo the many points of just imploring the MTA to reconsider this schedule. I'm someone who normally takes the 6:45 a.m. into the city. I then take generally a 6 or 7 p.m. express train when they existed home from the city and, do that on a normal, regular basis as a longtime commuter and a frequent commuter. I think people's points around missing a train, the lack of trains, the lack of express trains, thinking through what will happen if in fact there is a missed train or there's an issue at Penn Station is incredibly important. And so I just ask that the MTA reconsider.
Great, thank you, Carrie. So right now we're checking our list of attendees, but so far everyone that we have that's on has also spoke. So we may have missed people. So if we have, please go into the Q&A and let us know. Additionally, a bunch of individuals registered but didn't end up speaking or attending. So yeah, please just go into the chat and let us know, or the Q&A function rather, and let us know if you'd like to speak, and we will call on you and get you on. Thank you. Okay, well, I see one. Adam Creighton. Followed by Neil Picker. Thank you, guys. Okay, we got a couple. Thank you.
Hi, this is Adam Creighton. Can you hear me?
Yep, thank you, Adam.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for your comments tonight. I do want to reiterate the points that many people have made, just to get it in the public record, that the proposed schedule. Oh, I'm sorry. I am a resident of Port Washington, and I've been here for over 9 years. The proposed schedule will really adversely impact us. The reduction of an express trains will mean longer rides, more crowded trains, longer wait times between trains, choosing whether to get to work ridiculously early or late because of the reduced frequency and, the depressed property values. There may be a net increase in service, but the splitting of the trains between Penn Station and Grand Central doesn't really help those of us who need to commute into one station. I also want to reiterate the points that have been made about, Metz Willets Point as being a shadow station, and what happens when there are, the inevitable and unavoidable cancellations. Penn Station can be pandemonium, and I just can't even imagine what it would be like when a train is canceled and, there are only 2 trains scheduled. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Next, we're going to have Neil Picker, followed by George Coffer. And also, just for you in the chat, I'm not going to respond to you, because if I do, I'll lose you in the Q&A, and then I won't see you there. So I could miss you again. So I'm just going to not respond to you, but I have you. So thank you.
Hi. My name is Neil Picker. I am a resident of Great Neck, and I am also a resident of the village of Thomaston. The village of Thomaston, we had a pocket track that was built, and we approved this pocket track under the assumption, and we were told by the MTA that this would be towards improving service. And of course, we thought that service would be improved. But now that I've looked at this new schedule, I honestly don't think that is an improvement of service. And I wonder whether or not the village of Thomaston ever should have agreed to allowing the expansion of the pocket track, because from a personal standpoint, I don't see an improvement of service. I can't believe that after all of this time and all of this conversation and the promise of the Grand Central Madison access, that it's going to end up with a reduction in service. So I ask, just like many other people on this call, for the MTA to consider a certain amount of express train reinstatement to the schedule for the Nassau County stations. Every train doesn't have to be, but at least some level of express train service certainly would be justified. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next, we're going to have George Kaufer, followed by Mark Denker.
Hi, good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I am George Kaufer, and I'd like to I'd like to offer some comments specifically relating to the lack of improvements on the diesel branches. I know that there's generally an equipment constraint, but that only applies during rush hours. During off-peak hours, by definition, you have enough trains for the rush hour. So during off-peak hours, there should be extra trains available in storage to run the service. Particularly the Greenport branch, which I know there's a single track and it's miles and miles of single track, but I'm pretty sure if you reduce the layover time and just run it to a reasonable amount that it has a reasonable degree of reliability, but just try to run more trips, maybe a couple of extra short turns to Riverhead, a few definitely earlier and later weekend service, and even the regular service during the weekday should be to have a last weekday train at 5 o'clock is kind of early. But yeah, definitely the electric branches, there's definitely room for improvement on those too. But the main thing is that diesel branch service should be improved so that people can actually use the train in their own neighborhood instead of driving all the way to Ronkonkoma or Babylon to have a decent level of service. Yeah, I think some consistency in the service patterns in terms of which trains stop at which stations would be good. But yeah, I think there's some room for improvement, but there is definitely some good stuff and a step in the right direction. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Great, thank you. Next, we're going to have Mark Denker, followed by Wen Fang Tan.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'd like to thank the MTA, the Local 3, IBEW, and the Sandhogs for the completion of such a monumental engineering feat. It is truly something that New York deserves and that is long overdue. However, I do believe that the schedule, I am a resident of Manhasset, and the schedule is counterproductive to our goal of getting our New York City economy up and running. My wife, who has the opportunity to work from home based upon this schedule, will continue to work from home. She will not go to work and she will not spend her money at local businesses in the city. I myself have the opportunity to drive, and with the uncertainty and having been inconvenienced unintentionally, of course, during times of severe weather or for mechanical failure, I cannot take the risk of not getting home to my family, but with one train an hour. So I hope that the MTA could go back, look at it, find a solution. There are a lot of capable people there. I know that if a solution can be found, it will be found. And thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Next, we're going to have Wang Fang Tan, followed by Anthony Cruz.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yep.
So I am Wen Fang Tan. I live in village of Thompson, and in addition to echo to others, actually I live right next to the pocket track, and more than that, I live right next to the Colonial Bridge. So for many of you may not remember the Colonial Bridge, we had construction for the last few years. The conversation started with years ago, and we went into many public sessions. Starting from that point on, we suffered as a local residents, all the noise and dust coming from the constructions over the years during the weekend and midnight, in a hope as you promised to increase the service level. So right now, when we look at the timetable, just as me as an example, I take 7:47 train in the morning and 5:44 train in the evening. That's we call like golden line of the express train. And it's always overcrowded before pandemic time. We always have to stand there. There's no seat at all. And it's overpacked, but it's super important for our communities for those express trains to exist. And I would certainly hope we can restore our service level at least to what we had before, or better if we can keep our promise to increase the service level instead of decrease. That's all I'm hoping for. Thank you.
Thank you, Wang Feng. So next we're going to have Anthony Cruz, and then no one else has responded in the question and answer, so please, if you'd like to speak, now is the time. And Anthony, you're up, by the way. Sorry about that.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome, thank you. So my name is Anthony Cruz, and I am a resident of Valley Stream, and I wanted to echo the appreciation for this project. I am happy in that for Valley Stream specifically, it's indicated that our morning rush hour service will be increased by 21%. However, I did want to express concern at the fact that Valley Stream, in terms of our station, has been geographically placed alongside the Southeast Queens region, Locust Manor, Laurelton, and Rosedale, which geographically makes sense, but in terms of the fare that Valley Streamers pay in comparison to those that do travel within the rest of Southeast Queens, we're placed in Zone 4 rather than Zone 3. So I would like to ask the MTA to please consider, since we are already being placed within the same vicinity as the rest of Southeast Queens, that our fare indicate that same parity as well. It is a bit inequitable to have a fare that does not reflect the rest of Southeast Queens. So having Valley Stream be brought to Zone 3 in comparison to staying in Zone 4 would be best in order to most take advantage of this new opportunity with Grand Central Madison. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we're going to have Audrey Alessi. And again, I have no one else in the chat who's requested to speak. So please, if you'd like to speak, now is the time.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you for hosting this. We're, I think, like I can speak for a lot of us, we're happy that our voices are being heard. I'm Audrey Alessi. I've been a Port Washington resident for the past 9 years. My husband and I moved to Port Washington. I was always a commuter into the city, and I've commuted on many different lines. And we moved here for what was always hailed as the best Long Island train ride. When the East Side Access was first announced and proposed, it was always spoken of as additive service. So to now learn that this is not accurate is truly disheartening. I kind of feel bamboozled this whole time to be losing crucial peak express service is just completely unacceptable. And I really hope that you guys will consider amending the draft schedule, because it will really drastically hurt so many families. So yeah, I hope that you guys will consider, and I thank you for the time.
Thank you, Audrey. So at this time, we have no one else who is commented in the Q&A. Nope. I have someone. Okay. I have Kat Zapata who would like to speak. So, Kat, we'll call on you shortly. And yeah, if anyone else would like to speak, please feel free to comment in the Q&A.
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
We can hear you, Kat.
Good evening, all. Oh, great. Good evening, all. My name is Kat Zapata, and I'm the Transportation Policy Liaison to the Office of Queensborough President. I'm reading this testimony on behalf of Queensborough President Donovan Richard Jr. Hello, MTA officials, the New York City public, and other stakeholders. The LIRR expansion to Grand Central Station is here, and I couldn't be more supportive of it. While I understand that it's not perfect, I'm excited for this project because of its overall potential. So long, our borough has been a transportation desert to many areas, and now we're finally acting on proactivity. The expansion to Grand Central Station from the surrounding Queen stations will be impactful for every LIRR user. I can't imagine how this wouldn't attract more users to take the LIRR from Queens and Long Island, especially now that the city ticket is in full effect. Ridership will only grow and exceed from the numbers we've seen in pre-pandemic days. The LIRR usual riders from Locust Manor to Woodside to Borough Hall Station, Kew Gardens will now have the accessibility to get to Grand Central in no time and not have to divert to other train options. I applaud the MTA for this great accomplishment. This will truly mobilize all sectors in our growing and flourishing city. We ask for the MTA to please take in any other consideration that constituents have mentioned tonight. Thank you for allowing me to testify this evening. Be safe and stay well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kat. So at this time, we have no more individuals who are wishing to speak, so I think we're going to bring it to conclusion here. I want to remind everyone that this is really just the beginning. You know, this is our fourth meeting, well, fourth session. We've had 3 sessions prior to this. This is our first public meeting, so after this, we're going to have a number of other public meetings over the coming months, so please stay tuned for more info on that. I think I speak for all of us here if you guys want to make some quick remarks. I appreciate all the testimony that was given tonight. And yeah, I think that's it. Kathy, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, just to thank everybody for coming out tonight. It's it's always important to hear from those who are going to be affected by the new service. And as Nick just said, this is just the beginning of months of outreach. You'll be hearing much more information about the service plan. But I really do appreciate your coming out tonight and sharing your views with all of us. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So everyone have a great night. Look forward to hearing from us soon about more events. And stay well.